Before we begin carpet tiling, or part of the carpet tiling process is setting the floor area out first. So that's the same as vinyl tiles. We will measure the width of the room and then divide it by 2 and see what the cut's going to be like. So, measure the room, by 7, and mark the floor. So, do the same off the same wall. And then do exactly the same in the opposite direction. Measure the whole length, divide it by 2. Again, coming off the same wall that you took your first mark from. And then, if you're on your own, get a chalk line or a straight edge. Nice little pin, just going to have to get a hammer. Get your pin. Just tack it in. If that was a concrete floor, you'd either use a straight edge, ask somebody to hold your chalk line for you, or use a concrete masonry nail to knock it in. Get your chalk line then, hook it over your nail, pull it to your other point, pull it nice and tight, flick your line. That's a perfectly straight line. And repeat the process. Just give it a little tap down, it just pushes the hole back down. That is the same in the opposite direction. Pull it nice and tight. What you end up with is a cross on the floor. Now what we can do is we can check if the walls are square or if my lines are square by using the 3-4-5 method. So what I'm going to do is measure up that line 30 centimetres, 300mm. That way 40 centimetres or 400mm. And then if this right angle is square, that should be 500 across, which is near enough. Okay, so that tells me that it's square. Next part of the setting out process is to work out what size cuts you're going to have against the wall. Well, the first thing you've got to do is just work out the size of your tile. Most carpet tiles are 50 by 50, but it's always worth checking. And there we go, that one's 46. Okay, so it's an unusual size, 18-inch tile. Okay, so it's going back to the old imperial measurements. So you can lay a tile out if you want to, or a couple of tiles to work out what your cut's going to be like. We end up with a cut like that. That's not what I call a very, very good cut, because you're going to get a lot of waste. Okay, so what we'll need to do is move this line across half the width of the tile, which should then give us a better cut. Okay, I'll just try that on the floor first before I go putting my line in. So that would be the sort of half point of the tile. Just bring my tile across. You could do this with a tape measure if you're quite good at maths or whatever. Sometimes people just like to see it visually. So I've moved it across half a tile, which is then give us a 3/4 tile cut. Because I've moved it half a tile, and I'll just demonstrate, you'll still get the same cut on that wall. So it's still even. I'm happy with that now. So what I'll do, just a little exercise, I'll just repeat what I did before. Measure there, the distance I've moved it across. The same this side. And just put the new line in. Grab your chalk line, exactly the same process, pull that through. I'm happy with that one. We know it's going to form a good tile. But before we go any further, I'll just grab my pencil, give myself a bit of a mark, so I know that's not the one we're working to now. Otherwise we might get confused and start in the wrong position. So we're happy that way, and then we just repeat exactly the same process in the opposite direction. Drop them in again. So again, what we've got there is a bad cut. But this time, all I really need to do, I'll move it across half a tile from our point there, which, because they were 18-inch tiles, is 9. Okay, so that would be what we're predicting. So I'll just drop one in, 2, just to check, and that again you can see that's another good cut. But all I'll do this way, instead of putting another cross line, okay, I'll just put another tile there, and that now, where that is, draw a little line like we do with the vinyl tiling. That will be our start point. Okay, that's how we mark out a bay. Part of the task, when you're all set out and you're happy with your marking out, is to apply some sort of adhesive to the floor. Years ago, carpet tiles were never glued, but then when people started using roller chairs or whatever, the carpet tiles started moving. So now we fix them with a tackifier. Just a watered down pressure sensitive adhesive really. Just take the lid off, you find your glue. Some fitters use a trowel, an old screeding trowel, put it on, but the sort of industry recognised way really is with a paint roller. So just get a bit on. Now there's no need to go right to the wall because we've got quite a good cut, and then you don't have to worry about getting adhesive all up the skirtings. And all we're going to do is roll the tackifier on, like so. It's very important with tackifier that you let it go right off. If you lay into it wet, it becomes a permanent adhesive. When you let it go off, it just sort of tacks them in place. So never lay into the wet adhesive. And then we're just going to paint roller the whole bay. What you might find on some jobs, if it's a massive room, you might be able to get away with gridding the floor. So maybe every third row, you'll just put a band of tackifier which locks it together. When the tackifier has gone off, and it's just giving you that little tack, we then are able to start fitting our carpet tiles. If we look at the carpet tiles, on the back there's an arrow. Traditionally, carpet tiles are laid every other, so you'd lay one arrow one way and the other arrow the other way. But you'd always keep them facing the same direction. If you pointed one arrow that way, it would always stay pointing that way, and the same with that way. But now and again, contractors will ask you to lay them all the same way, which gives you that broad loom effect. If you lay them all the same way, it'll look like a carpet. But today we're going to lay them every other. So this arrow is going to go towards that wall. Now I'm going to start on my start point, which was there. I almost made the mistake. It's a good job I scribbled the line out and dropped that in. Making sure it's on the line there, which is my main through line. When I'm happy, I won't push it in just yet, just in case I've got to make any other adjustments. Now the next one is going to go to this wall. And again, I'll just drop that in there. Make sure it drops on my line. It's on my line nicely. We're happy with them, so I'm going to give them a little push in. Okay, then we grab a few more tiles. Now if we remember, this tile is going that way, so this one going here needs to go that way. So we'll drop that in, like so. Starting from the middle, we will do exactly the same. So what I've effectively got now is that one's going that way, that one's going that way, that one's going that way. So next row then, if you notice I give them a little twist in, put the corner in first, and then make sure they line in. If it's a loop pile, carpet tile, sometimes you have to just tuck them in to stop the loop going flat on the edges. These are quite a nice tile to be laying. And exactly the same in the opposite direction. So again, I won't turn the arrow that way, it's still got to face the same way. So the arrow, as you can see, will be facing that way. Drop it in the middle, just find the edge of your tile, making sure it's dead on. Drop it in nicely, just grab a couple more tiles. And this is what we call putting in the field. Making sure the corner's in, making sure the edges are nice and tight. Just give it a little pull in, if need be. Just show you once again. Get the corner in first, drop the edge in. If you're happy, little pull in, drop that. It's a little bit, you can see there, it's pushed the pile down a little bit. So all we do, run my finger down there, and then just give that a little tuck in like so. Far better. And that's the field, all the field tiles put in. Okay, we're now going to cut the tiles into the perimeter of the room. Various methods for this, and I'll show you a few now. So first of all, the tile going in there, we need to make sure the arrows are going to point that way. So all I'm going to do is make sure that edge there is nice and tight against the wall. I can then use a straight edge, make sure it's lined up on the two edges. Nice, sharp, crisp, straight blade. Again, just check it's lined up. First cut nice and gently, a bit harder with the second cut, and the third cut. But what I've actually got there is I've got a cut edge now against a factory edge, and we don't want that. So we're going to just turn it over like so. That's one method of cutting them. Second method I use probably more so, is I'll take this tile out, because the tile's going here needs to go in that way. So I'd lift this up, turn it the direction I want the cut tile. Make sure it's in, nice and tight. Let's get the opposite, the tile against the wall like so. Okay, straight blade. And just run it down the edge. Like so. Lift that one out. Just pull it back slightly. Might just have to do a little bit of undercutting. And what I do with this tile then, is push it in. Make sure this tile's going in the right direction. Make sure it's nice and tight. If you get a little bit of buckling, like we're getting now, then that means that tile's a little bit too tight. So all we're going to do is pop it out, and it just means I've got to trim a little bit off the edge. All I do, put my knife underneath, just take a little bit. I'm not cutting the pile at the top, just cutting the back anyway. sure your work area is clean, make sure your tile's clean. Give it a little twist in, drop it in, and there we go. It's nice. Good thing about having a nice tight cut is it locks all the tiles together. The third method, and again you'll notice I've started in the middle and worked to the ends, is we want the tile to go that way. Okay, what I'll do is put that against the wall like I did before, making sure it's tight against the wall. If the wall was on a little bit of an angle, I would still make sure it was tight against the wall. I wouldn't worry what was happening in this end. In this case, if you're using this method, obviously you've got to make sure your tackifier is completely dry. And then again, just run your knife gently down that edge. Again, like anything we do, it's about knife control. Pull your tile back like that. Make sure this one fits nice. Your tiles are in. Check your arrow. Give it a little bit of a bend. And that should fit in there. Nice. Again, it's a little bit tight. But like we said, we try and keep them tight if we can to lock it all together. But you don't want to be going back because the carpet tile is sticking up. Now that, in my opinion, again, is a little bit too tight. So, exactly the same method. We're just going to trim a little bit off the edge, just to make sure the more you do of them, the more you get cut in, you get used to just giving them a trim off, etc. Any excess, just be careful pulling it in case the glue comes out. Give it a little bit of a good twist again, and then just drop that in. So, okay. I'm going to go back to my chosen method, which is that one. All I'm interested in is it's tight against that edge. Push that against the wall. Knife in there. Pull that out. Give it a trim. Remove any excess. Drop that in, like so. Find your tile, make sure the arrow's going in the right direction, just drop it back in, like so, making sure it all fits nicely. Again, don't know why it's working like that, for some reason they tend to be. You notice when I'm trimming it, I've got my thumb against the blade, and just carefully bring it down the tile, nice and controlled. If the knife slips, it only slips a short distance and not into my chest. There we go. Do a corner tile now. One of the methods we can use, we take that tile out, put it over there so we know where it is. Check the arrows, still going that way. Push it in tight, making sure it's nice and tight against this one. This is a good method if the walls are nice and square, not too much of an issue. Cut it like we would normally. Be careful not to cut the tile underneath. Bend her over. And then exactly the same process here. Take that one out of there. corner tile in there, like so. Now, remember which are your factory edges. Got a common mistake to make. You see it's a little bit bigger there. Just put it in, make sure it fits. Okay, put that one back in there. Fits it nicely. A bit adjustment required there. And then that one should go in there, like so. That's a corner. Okay, to cut a doorway, obviously make sure the arrows are going the way you need them. Tiling. And this is a very awkward architrave to cut in because it goes in and out and so on. And marking a capital is quite difficult because you can't put pencil marks etc. on them. So what we'll do, use an off-cutter tile with a reasonably straight edge. Find the edge of your tile, run along the wall, draw that in, or use your knife to mark that in. A little bit of a step there too, like so. I'm going to bring it to that bit there. And try and weigh up how far you need to come with the knife. That's one of the most important things. That round bit steps in a little bit more, so I'm just going to put a little bit catching the edge of it. There's another little indentation there, another little cut, another little indentation there. So again, another little cut there. And the last one is the front edge. So there might be a door plate or a nosing on there. Just bring it to the end to make sure it's right. And then when we come to this side, because it comes round and in, I'm just going to mark that on the edge. You see where my pencil line is from where I did the hardboarding. And then I'm going to draw another little line in. And then I'm going to bring it to the edge there, where the curve starts. Another little line. And then I'm just going to pick up the edge there, like so. And then it's a little bit of trying to line all them up, like so. So then trim off any excess bits, get our curve like so, just tidying it up. There's the curve there, there's a little bit more off there, and then that comes down, okay, and then it should drop in. Nice. A little bit tight there, so again we'll just pull it out and trim it down a little bit more. And once you're happy with it, just carefully push it into position. Just run it in. And what I always do, use the end of the knife, just make sure it's all in nice. So, brilliant. And that's it. Final task, just give it a quick sweep over with your broom, just get off any excess. And then just have one check on the edge, just make sure there's no tiles sticking up, they're all in, all nice and tight. You haven't left any blades lying around. And it's clean and tidy for the client. That's carpet tiling.